Today I inviting a very promising researcher in the world and Hong Kong PolyU, Vincent of Tung. I'm going to introduce him briefly based on his short bio. Professor Tung is an engaged researcher in tourism, focusing on resident attitude, tourism experience, industry perspective for destination marketing and management. He's associate editor for Annals of Tourism Research, ranked among the world top 2% most cited scientists. Wow. As released by Stanford University. As a teacher, he aims to develop future leaders in tourism, offering challenging yet fair instruction while maintaining high standards. He has taught various undergraduate and postgraduate subjects and has supervised doctoral students from diverse countries, helping them to publish research in top-tier tourism journals. Additionally, Professor Tung contributes academic and community service, serving PolyU Institutional Review Board as subject area coordinator for tourism management. Wow. Okay. Professor Tung, stage goes to you. You may begin.
Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation to present today, Professor Koo. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second right now. Okay. There we go.
Okay.
You can see my power.
Sure.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you for having me today. It is 9 o'clock here in Hong Kong. It's a National Day holiday. So it's quite nice to be here and to speak to you about my research on intergroup relations in tourism. Hopefully, we can have a good discussion during the Q&A session, and then we'll go from there. Okay?
Okay.
I'm Vincent Tung, Associate Professor here at PolyU SHTM. So a little about me, just to begin before. I did my PhD in management at the University of Calgary in Canada, with specialization in marketing and tourism management. So for those of you who have not been to Calgary or Canada, this is what it looks like. Beautiful city with Rocky Mountains in the back, wonderful for winter sports. And then I came to PolyU SHTM back in 2014. My research focuses on several areas: tourism experiences, host-guest relations, which I will present today, and emerging technologies. And currently I'm doing some research on entrepreneurship and startups as well in those areas. For teaching, so I know this is a research seminar, and when I designed this, I was keeping in mind what I have taught before. So I taught tourism development in Asia, which is a subject we offer to our French MSc students when they were in Hong Kong. Contemporary issues in tourism, destination management, and entrepreneurship and innovation in hospitality. Those are our undergraduate courses. And then theories and concepts for PhD students, I'm teaching right now. One of the more abstract subjects, but I think the students quite enjoy theories and concepts. And I have been chief supervisor for a lot of students, actually, doctoral students from very many different countries. Singapore, Cyprus is in EU, Malawi is in Africa, China, Saudi Arabia. So I have worked with a lot of different personalities, different backgrounds, different values, and different views of research. During the Q&A later today, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. You can type it in the chat box if you wish. You can also just turn on your mic. I would be happy to discuss with you. Service, given that this is a research session, I work as associate editor for Annals of Tourism Research. And I'm an editorial board member of Tourism Management, Journal of Travel Research, and other journals. So which means essentially is I see a lot of recent research coming in. I help review, I assign reviewers. So I am quite engaged. I call myself an engaged researcher. That is, I try to stay up to the trends, what is happening, etc. Whether it's in technology, robotics, combining robotics with experiences, which is what I do, technology with experiences, etc. So today's topic is intergroup relations in tourism. Now, I picked this particular topic, intergroup relations in tourism, because I want to tell you a story of my research program, not just a research study, but a research program that I have developed over the years, and hopefully to inspire you to develop multiple studies in a lengthy research program. So when we talk about intergroup relations in tourism, it's the social psychological process within and between groups. In tourism, it could be tourists and residents. It could be between tourists and tourists. But these are typically of topics of critical concern to society. Okay, so some of the key words in the topic of intergroup relations. It can be stereotyping. It could be discrimination. It can include intergroup conflict and cooperation, minority and majority influence, and social identities. So the topic of intergroup relations is quite broad. But of course, for today's seminar, we are not going to go through each and every single one of them. So I picked the topic of stereotyping, which is what I developed over the last few years. If there's time, I can also share with you some of my current research areas on discrimination as well. But I want to focus on what I published with you. So if you want to refer back to my papers after the presentation, you can do so as well. So these are just major issues that we have. And I think these issues of stereotyping, for example, it's not just in Hong Kong. It can happen in Japan, South Korea, anywhere, US these days, Canada.
Okay.
US traveling to Canada, American travel to Canada, there's also different intergroup relations.
Vincent.
Yes.
I wish to comment on these intergroup relations.
Yes, please.
This week in Seoul, Korea, we have a major party in political party in Korea. One party is a right wing, another party is a left wing. And the right wing, they keep addressing the conflict between the mainland Chinese coming to Korea, and then they treat them as kind of something something uncomfortable behavior in Seoul, and they keep kind of a promotion, the kind of a wrong promotion and some kind of conflict issues. Actually, it's not, but that right wing is supported by that politically right wing from America. So and then they mention about the tourist in Seoul. So if that is so your research topic, like intergroup conflict between tourists, mainland Chinese tourists, and residents in Seoul, is that apply for that situation?
Yes. In fact, it'll be part of my presentation coming
Oh,
up.
I see. Okay.
Because we experienced some of those dilemmas in Hong Kong before, a few years back.
Okay.
And it builds up, right? Because I read on the news that starting in October 1st, or I think even yesterday, tourist groups from mainland China can now go to South Korea as a group of 3 or more for 15 days without a visa. So I heard that has just been a major policy change. And
yeah, we changed.
Yeah, we changed.
We're welcoming the mainland Chinese tourists. We need to make money from those people. We are poor.
No, it's a balance between economics, right? It's a balance between economics, the social political situation,
yes,
right, and what the people want as well.
Yes,
and of course jobs.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you very much for bringing this up, because this is exactly what I want to share. So before I say I have to make an acknowledgement, this was supported by 2 research grants from the Research Grant Council of Hong Kong that were completed in 2019 and 2023. Okay, so this is where I wanted to show you how the research has progressed over the years. I'll tell you a little bit a story, okay? And it all started at Park and Shop and TST East for me, because students sometimes ask, Vincent, how do you get your research ideas, right? And this is how I got my research idea. So when I came to Hong Kong, I was told that, There's a lot of tourists from mainland China.
Mm.
They go to luxury shops, they line up, there's some conflicts between them. Some of the locals were not very happy because there's, over tourism, too many. So they told me that view. Then one day I was at Park and Shop. Now, what is Park and Shop? Park and Shop is just a local grocery store. Park and Shop grocery store. So I was waiting in line, queuing to be the next person to pay. And then behind me I could tell was a tourist, mainland Chinese tourist, and she wanted to jump the queue, go in front of me, and I was waiting in line. Okay. So this lady, she was an older lady. She told her daughter, about 9-year-old, 10-year-old, I guess, come on, quickly jump the queue, right? But that daughter just looked at the roof, looked at her feet, looked everywhere, trying to ignore her mother because the daughter knew that was wrong. So the next generation, of course, the daughter cannot say no to the mom, but just try to ignore. And then in my thought, I thought, it's not fair to call all mainland Chinese tourists X. Mainland Chinese tourists are Y. Look at this young girl, the new generation, right? So in that sense, that inspired me to look at, how we see stereotypes. How do we see mainland Chinese tourists? Okay. So that's my personal story. And that's how I started developing into this area. Before I came to Hong Kong, my research was on tourist experience, the tourist side.
Okay.
I came to Hong Kong, I look at the resident side because that's what society demanded of me at that time. So I thought, why would this happen? Right? Because in Hong Kong, it's quite an interesting situation. Okay, we share a similar culture. Okay, a lot of them are Cantonese speaking in Hong Kong and in the Greater Bay Area in Guangzhou. Similar culture, a similar history. We should have similar values. Of course, you see in Hong Kong, there's that East meets West, where there's a British influence, but there's Confucianism. So it's quite similar, but yet these conflicts still happen.
Okay.
So when you put it together, it's intergroup relations from a social psychology perspective, with tourism management from a destination perspective, and host-guest relations between residents and tourists. So I wanted to combine these three areas, and that forms the research topic. So today, in fact, I won't present one paper. I want to present 3 papers. I'm going to be a little bit ambitious.
Great.
Because it's a research time. I want to give you a little bit more. And through the evolution of these research papers from 2020 to 2023, you can see how it evolved. For myself, it's Vincent Tung. I give credit to Professor Brian King, who is in Texas A&M right now, and Dr. Serene C. She was my PhD student from Singapore. So we worked together, and then afterwards, she carried on to this area as well. Okay, so as I present these papers, maybe what I will do is I'll present one paper, and then we can have a brief Q&A. I'll present the second paper, we can have a brief Q&A. And then third paper, same thing, and we can wrap it up. Okay, and I'll monitor the time. Professor Koo, you can tell me how the time is going as well, because I want to give chances for discussion. So the first paper I will present is something called the tourist stereotype model. Okay, and this was published in Journal of Travel Research. It's stemmed from that story that I told you. Okay, so here you can see, you can search it up on Google Scholar, you can search it up later, but this is what it looks like. So what is tourist stereotype? Now, tourist stereotype, people say, let's ground it in something. When I typed Chinese tourists on Google, and I share images, the top is Chinese tourists. I typed American tourists on Google, and the images that were the first row were American tourists. In other words, of course, these are just images that blogs, newspapers, people post. So everybody has a view, right? Everybody has a view of stereotypes. Now, the topic of tourist stereotypes is not new itself. it's been studied in social psychology for many, many years. For example, gender stereotypes. Okay, females. If we combine HR, OB, and females, like, oh, female leaders in an organization, what stereotypes do you have? If we do sports, if you say, oh, you're an African American athlete, you have a stereotype. I had a stereotype too. People say, oh, Vincent, you're Chinese. That means you must be good at math, right? Because, Chinese people are good at math. That's a stereotype. So stereotypes occur when in-group members apply a set of characteristics to out-group members. So it's like a you versus me, an in-group versus an out-group. Okay, but of course, there's many different me's, and that depends on your social identity at that point. So let's put ourselves into an example. When you're in Seoul and I'm in Hong Kong, in a tourism context, we are residents. So we stereotype against tourists. But when I go on a vacation to Japan, let's say, I become the tourist, and the local Japanese can stereotype against me. But of course, things are more complicated than that, right? Because, in tourism, we also have group tours. So if you call yourself a group tourist, then people see you a different way. But if you're solo independent, then maybe you're not just a tourist. Maybe you feel like, oh, I'm a traveler, I'm an explorer. So even these labels can change our identities. And of course, I'm male, I'm intersection with, I'm a husband, I'm a father as well. So depending on our social identity at that time, how we see ourselves as in-group and who's our out-group changes. Okay, so that's really stereotyping. And of course, we say, oh, is stereotyping, can we stop stereotyping? The answer is no, because in our minds, everyone has a schema. Through our experiences, through things we read, our personal history, we all automatically group people into certain categories. Okay, so I wanted to find out, okay, at least from at the start, right? At the start of the research is what type of characteristics do Hong Kong residents, when they think about, or, in your case, Korean residents, think about mainland Chinese tourists. Okay? So I looked at the literature first. The construct domain of stereotype content. There's something called the Princeton trilogy. There's lots and lots of words, attributes to describe social groups, many, many words. The stereotype content model, also from social psychology, splits most people into two categories, warmth and competence. So people see you as friendly, as warm. That's one dimension. And it crosses, the other dimension is competence. You're smart, you're intelligent, etc. Okay, and then, of course, existing literature on Chinese stereotypes. There's a lot of research in intergroup relations that say, oh, when I look at Chinese students, they're usually shy, they're quiet, but they're smart, So the literature review essentially looks at all these stereotype attributes from different streams of literature to compile a master list of what the literature had talked about for Chinese. Okay? So what are my objectives? When I do this, what's the point of doing all of this work, right? So the first point is I want to identify, as I shared with you, what they are. And then I want to develop a scale to measure positive and negative preconceptions held by Hong Kong residents of mainland Chinese tourists. Now, here's the interesting part. Stereotypes, most people think of these as negative. But stereotypes can also be positive. Positive. How can stereotypes be positive? There's fewer studies that have looked into that. Okay, so negative, maybe you're rude, right? That's not good. But positive can also have a negative effect as well. So let's say this. You say, oh, Vincent, you're a Chinese male, you're good at math. That's a positive stereotype, right? You're good at math, you're smart. But because you gave me a positive stereotype, now I feel anxiety and pressure to live up to your expectations. if you think about your friends, you say maybe African Americans are good in sports. Are all Africans Americans or all Africans good in sports? No. But the idea is if you put a label on it, it sounds very nice. You're athletic. But still, it causes anxiety, especially if you're not good in sports. And Vincent is not good at math. So there's both positive and negative stereotypes. I want to consider both. That's study one. And next,
Vincent,
study.
Here's my
Yes.
question.
Yes, please.
About just one idea pop up to me. Like these days, Korean, due to the Netflix effect, and a lot of Netflix drama and K-pop contents go widely spread to all over the world, especially in Europe and the United States. Because suddenly the Korean stereotype is changing from negative to the positive. And once the people say, the other days when I was in the backpacking traveling in the States, every single United States, the people look at me and you must be China and you must be Japan and you Chinese or Japanese. And probably these days people will say Korean and then they say, wow, it's about positively react about Korean and then they are mentioning about food, mentioning about drama, mentioning about K-pop dance, sort of things. So in terms of a stereotype, probably we are the most good familiar example of a stereotype transition as one case would be Korean these days. What do you think about that?
Yeah, see? And no, this is a wonderful example. Everywhere I go when I was in Canada this summer was K-pop Demon Hunter. Right? You probably heard that from Netflix, right? Squid Game, K-pop Demon Hunter. This is, and that's the thing, right? This is the type of soft power, the cultural export that gives a national stereotype of all Koreans.
Okay.
Right? So it's very positive. But then I get the question is, as a Korean and you travel overseas, do you feel pressured, anxiety to live up to such expectations?
No.
You cannot tarnish the Korean name anymore, right? So if others see you as very good, you must do better.
Okay.
So it reinforces each layer of stereotypes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's very good. So yeah, but oftentimes, with tourism, because culture, arts and music are totally different. But tourism, people always see it as more negative. Yes, we want to make money, right? Economic benefits. But there's too many tourists. They don't recycle. They don't follow our rules and our traditions, our norms. So tourism tend to lean to the negative side. Sheer number of visitors. That's the reality of it. Leads to the negative side. So here I had experiments 2A and 2C. I will not share these ones because it's a little bit off on the side. It's an experimental design to see if we can mitigate the preconceptions. But let me continue on with my story. So usually I have to tell students when you do research and also when we review papers these days, we all start to look at why is it important. We have scholarly scientific merit, which is the theoretical aspect, but more and more we're looking for practical impact. What does it mean? So here I listed a few. So for example, social impact. By understanding tourist stereotypes against mainland Chinese, we can understand the negative stereotypes that could lead to hostile intergroup relations. And like I shared, even positive stereotypes can lead to negative interpersonal experiences. So for Koreans, if your American friends say, oh, you must all be very good dancers, right? Right, because K-pop, right? You must all be very good singers. Those could be not very nice interpersonal experiences because they have a stereotype of who you are already. So destination management, and this is the tricky part, a delicate balance between views of tourists and local residents. And this is where, when you brought up, Professor Koo, about the politics. Of course, the politics need to have the resident votes, but yet they still need to balance the views. So it's a very delicate balance, whether it's from a political science perspective, a policy perspective, or management perspective. And tourist stereotypes could potentially undermine destination competitiveness. We have seen that in Hong Kong, when it was quite hostile against mainland Chinese tourists, there was a lot of social media about, Hong Kong people are unfriendly, they're rude, they don't treat us well, we shouldn't go there. But now, no, it's true. Now we're seeing a change. You know what? Hong Kong residents are actually quite nice. If you ask them, they're nice. They feel safe in our city.
Okay.
Right? So it's very fast for it to go down, but it takes a lot of work for the reputation to build up again. And the theoretical part is I want to advance research on tourist stereotypes within the broader research area of host-guest relations. So I shared with you the construct domain. So the methodology. So with the Princeton Trilogy stereotype content model and existing research on Chinese stereotypes, there was a list and a free response task. We also asked Hong Kong residents, give us some words you would describe stereotypes, and a list of 22 positive and 19 negative. And of course, when you do any research, if you develop a scale with a total of 41 items, that is quite long. It is quite long. And then in future research, if you want to ask participants, especially participants today, to fill out long surveys, they're not very happy. So yes, it's true that in my view, when it's more comprehensive, you can account for more variance. But because it's so comprehensive, you may take the realism away. It's so hard to do. That's why in psychology, there's always a short form of a scale. Okay? So here, we followed standard scale development procedures with calibration and validation samples. And more importantly is this. We brought it down to a manageable subset. Okay? Positive, approachable. So this is similar to the stereotype content model. There were Hong Kong residents who said, mainland Chinese tourists, I met a lot of them who are friendly, they're good, and then they're sincere. They do want to learn about the history of Hong Kong, for example, how we change different from there. So there's, Hong Kong residents are sincere. If you ask them, they will tell you. All right. So, and then they say, okay, competent. Now, competent, remember, every type of stereotype research is based on a point in time because stereotypes change. Stereotypes are fluid. So when I did this research, they said, mainland Chinese tourists, they're intelligent, they're hardworking, industrious, and they're competent, they're smart. At that time, there were a lot of IT companies, right, Huawei. And now we go forward, people here who drive know BYD. Yes, they can see that from a national perspective, which filters down to the individual. Chinese and Chinese tourists, they're pretty smart. They all have a smartphone, they know where to go. But the negative. Now, this negative, you probably may not be surprised. Some residents say, a lot of them are immoral, they're rude. How are they rude? They're immoral, they're uncivilized, they're unreasonable, and simply rude. So these are quite negative, right? These are quite negative. And here, boastful. Now, they're loud and materialistic. You can see it by the photo outside Gucci on the bottom right-hand side. Now, at that point in our research, mainland Chinese tourists were quite high spenders, let's put it this way. They lined up at luxury stores to buy a lot of luxury products. Those were good economic times. Fast forward to 2025. Do we see lineups? Sometimes, but not nearly the same effect. Because economic downturn, inflation, real estate in the mainland, so times have changed, right? Times have changed. But really, the finding here is that there are two dimensions of positive, approachable and competent, and two dimensions of negative, rude, and boastfulness. Now, you may not agree, and that's good. That's the whole point. If you agree with all the research, as I tell my students, there will be no future research. It's because you could disagree with these findings. Therefore, you collect more data to perhaps invalidate or validate such results. If you ask Hong Kong residents now, maybe they do not think mainland Chinese tourists are materialistic. In 2025, maybe it's different. Or maybe they say not as, so the extent to which they are materialistic and loud could decrease. I did a follow-up study. I asked mainland Chinese tourists, what do you think of other mainland Chinese tourists? Okay. I asked mainland Chinese tourists, what do they think of others? So this is a follow-up self-stereotype study. So here it's very simple, endorsing or refuting self-stereotypes. If it's above 0, they agree. If it's below 0, they disagree. So
they look at themselves.
Exactly. How do they look at themselves? How do they look at themselves? So, of course, if it's a good thing, people want to agree. So this one is not surprising. They see themselves as approachable and competent. Okay? They agree. Nice. It's nice. It makes sense. I go to the uncivilized. They disagree that they were uncivilized. Of course, you disagree. But interestingly, they agree they are boastful. They agree that they were loud and materialistic during the time of the research, right? Again, it's always about how the major issues of society, that's intergroup relations. So interestingly, right? Yes. Mainland Chinese tourists agree that they are boastful. Now you can ask yourself, right? This is based on mainland Chinese. If we put it into a different context, like South Koreans, when you travel, do you feel that you are boastful? Are South Koreans tourists boastful? Right?
Yes.
Everybody has sometimes, right? Sometimes. But see, then that's the thing, right? It changes with the times. So I look at the time. It is 9:33. This is the first paper. This is good because there's 2 more papers to go. Right? So the time is good. The social implications. So they readily associate Chinese tourists as competent, intelligent, and hard. Good. That's good. That's easy to understand. Now, the second point, endorsement of competence was associated with the absence of civility. The second sentence reflects the dilemma that positive stereotypes can suggest an absence of other valued traits. What does this mean? They say, oh, yes, mainland Chinese tourists are competent, they're smart, but they're not very rude. But they're not very civil, they're rude. So yes, they're good at one thing, but they offset it with something that's negative, just to achieve a balance. So yes, you're good, but I offset it with something that's bad. So yes, you're competent, but you're not civil. That's worrisome. Why can't the best would be you're competent and you're civil. Now, here's the worry. In management practices, can we use stereotypes to justify societal injustices? Separate areas in hotels, trains for Chinese tourists, for example. There were talk during that time. They say, you know what? Some hotels say, well, it depends how you package it, right? Oh, this floor is exclusively for Chinese tourists because we value them and they're separate. We provide different service. That sounds good. But if you have a floor for Chinese, a floor for Korean, a floor for Japanese, is that what we want as a society? Then I had a friend who asked me, he's like, oh, Vincent, you're Chinese, but you're raised in Canada. I was raised in Canada. So are you going to be in the Canadian floor or the Chinese floor? And then I told my friend, okay, so you're Russian, your wife is Mexican, your children were both born in Hong Kong. So are you going to be in the Russian, the Mexican, or the Chinese floor? Right? We all have different social identities, whether it's just simply ethnicity, nationality, gender, etc. But we start segregating people. The worry is that it can be injustice. But the other worry is self-stereotypes in the effort to see the current social system as fair, legitimate, and stable. So according to system justification theory, we all want to see that our society or social system is fair. We try to justify, well, this could happen because whatever. So if you start segregating, let's say Chinese tourists in the past, according to my research, said they were boastful. If they start embracing negative stereotypes, then they say, yeah, maybe it's fair that certain residents treat us this way because we are boastful. So they start internalizing the negative and they see it as fair. That is a worry. So what does it mean for destination management? We need to support against tourist stereotyping through education, destination ambassadors. And a lot of destinations are starting to do so, right? We're saying, okay, we have to tell the residents, yes, they're here, they want to spend money, but they also want to learn about you. And I think a lot of tourists these days are like that. They want to learn about the culture. They do not just want to go to the mass attractions. And as they interact more genuinely with the local people, I think the tourist stereotyping could be addressed. Internal marketing, counter stereotyping communication messages. So what does government have to share with their own residents? There's two sides, right? You always see advertising telling tourists what not to do. Do not spit. Do not litter, right? Tourists, do not turn off your cell phone in the train. They always tell tourists what to do. But maybe there needs to be some internal marketing to teach residents how to react, to teach residents, times are changing. So there needs to be both sides. So with that, this is the end of the first paper. Thank you very much. Questions or comments, Professor Koo or the students?
You know what? Your presentation quite inspired me to do research about, these days I'm teaching the global course in English, and suddenly all of a sudden, couple of years since a couple of years, we have a lot of diverse students from a variety of country, and majorly from Western European country such as France and Denmark and Netherlands and Germany and Finnish and Scotland, the Nordic countries, and also the Italian. And at the same time, we have a Mongolian and the Southeast Asian, like Indonesia and Vietnam and Myanmar. So it's quite interesting, very, very impressive to me. However, in the Korean, my class is pretty much mixed with Korean and international students, 20 Korean, 20 international students. And as you know, Chinese and Korean and Japanese is quite, shy and not talk too much in front of professors or in class and publicly. So but I want to hear from Korean about the international students, how they perceive those international students. Probably, I think there is something, they have a prejudice, they have their own stereotype about their certain countries, and they feel support or positively attitude toward those international students. And some people like, okay, the people are not superior to me, or not, seems like they are from the poor country, or they are from the Caucasian country and Western, countries such as Canada, America, and France and German. So I think we have a distinctively different attitude toward those, international students. Is it quite an upcoming issue in these days in Korea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think definitely when education becomes international, I think international students, we have international students in Hong Kong as well, and it's interesting because for the 3 or 4, if they're exchange students for one semester, they are almost low. They're not tourists. They're not residents, but they want to learn about how residents live. So they're not sojourners, that sojourner phase. And it's how they intermingle, right, with the local residents. They want to learn. But it's often during that time, with international students, that all these stereotypes that may break. They're like, oh, you know what? Maybe Koreans and Chinese and Japanese, they're shy as a group, but they're not shy with their friends.
Right.
It's a different social identity in the class versus in a small group.
Okay.
I think Professor Ku, you nailed it. It's very, very interesting, these dynamics. Do you want the students to type their questions or raise their hands? How do you prefer?
How about in Hong Kong? They are also pretty much quiet and shy in the class.
They are quite shy in the class. When we do these presentations, they prefer to type the question than raise their hand. Yes, they are shy.
Yes. So in my class, Koreans are pretty much not much talk. Not just because of English, but because they are born in Korea and raised in Korea like that way.
Okay.
And international students are a bit more active, a bit more speak and express their own idea and opinion to me. So, which is quite interesting to me. But I believe the talk and the communication is quite important role for achieving knowledge as well as acquaintance each other. So here a lot of the students are just staying quiet all the time.
That's okay. How about this? I'll continue with the presentation.
Yes.
And then if students have questions, they can think about it in the meantime.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so that was the first paper. So of course, the second paper I want to share, this was published in Tourism Management. Serene Siu was my PhD student, former PhD student. She's graduated now. And okay, we have one piece of the puzzle. We have the stereotypes. That was the paper that I published. Okay, but how do stereotypes affect behaviors? So let's say you're a South Korean. You're an international student, or I'm from Hong Kong. Yes, we have stereotypes about a tourist. They're intelligent or they're rude. How will that affect what I do? So that's exactly what we wanted to find out. So tourism research have typically explored these concepts independently. So the stereotypes was what I shared with you. Intergroup, emotions were explored, and behaviors. Now, behaviors is another paper that we published in JTR to map out the types of behaviors that residents would exert to tourists. Okay, but that's another paper. But for now, I want to link the two stereotypes. So we tried to present a tripartite model by connecting the interrelationships among stereotypes, emotions, and behaviors. And we did Hong Kong residents, but this time, no. We wanted to go with residents from Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. So we collected data from 3 ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Okay, so we moved beyond the Hong Kong context now. Now, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. So if it's a model, this is what it looked like. So the stereotype is what I presented before. And then emotions are you either admire them, you pity them, you envy them, or you contempt. Affective structure from the stereotype content model. And the behaviors are active facilitation, passive facilitation, active harm, or passive harm. This is from a resident behavior model that Serene, Dr. Zhe, and I published in JTR. So you can see it from the very bottom. So really, it's what would happen. Now, of course, this is just a model to give you a concrete idea, more concrete idea. This is what we had in our model. You can take some time to just take a look at this. The stereotypes is what we had. Emotions. Let's say, for example, if you think a Chinese tourist is approachable, then does it elicit admiration, contempt, pity, or envy? If you think they're approachable and you admire them, will you likely active facilitative behaviors such as interact, communicate, and socialize with them? Or do you say, okay, fine, they're approachable, but I'll just tolerate them, endure them. So I leave them alone. They don't bother me, I don't bother them. Or do you just mock them, active harm, be unfriendly, or act in a threatening manner? Now, in Hong Kong, during those times, we did see a lot of unfriendliness. But this time it's Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. And the last one is interesting, passive harm. Now, what is passive harm? It means resisting, refraining, and being reluctant to help a tourist. So if you see someone who wants to ask you, a tourist who looks like he or she is lost, wants to ask you for directions. If you are passive harm, you walk away and you ignore. You actively refuse to help. Right? But you're not hurting them, you just resist helping them. We see a lot of that. Oh, especially remember the negative stereotype and the positive stereotype. If the tourist is so smart, then why do I need to help them? Yeah. If the tourist is so smart with all that technology, why do they need to ask me for direction? They can find it themselves. A positive stereotype that could potentially lead to passive harm. Right? So really, it's that connection. As I move forward, it'll become a little bit more clear once I show the results. Wow, the results, right? So here are the results. The students may recognize the flags. So the first flag is what?
Singapore.
And then the bottom left is
Malaysia.
I think I saw one of the students' mouth move. And then the right is the last one, Thailand. Right? Thailand. So, wow, you can see from the model that they're very different. Now, this is interesting. Now you have to put this into context, right? Why did we choose these three? We chose these three because of how different they are. Singapore. Now, Singapore is a city-state. Okay? It's a city-state that is driven by really finance. Tourism is important, but it's not the same level of tourism as Thailand. Thailand is tourism. Singapore is more finance. It's wealthy, highest per capita income, right? It has, I think, 2 of the top universities in the world, so highly educated. So Singapore is a very unique case, right? They know tourism, they have tourism, but they don't really put it as priority compared to Thailand. Malaysia is not as dependent on tourism as Thailand, but they still want to grow the tourism industry. So they're in the middle, if you will. And then Thailand, we know Thailand and tourism, they go together. But they are all in 3 different stages of development in Southeast Asia. And it would be very interesting. They're all different sizes, countries, geography, etc. Very interesting to see how they would react to the tripartite model of stereotypes, emotions, and behaviors for Chinese tourists. So if we look at Singapore, for example, in Singapore, they said, okay, if our stereotypes of Chinese tourists are approachable, that's good, we admire them, and we are willing to help, which is active facilitation, and we're likely to endure them. We leave them alone. Very good, no problem. Similar with competence. If they think Chinese tourists are smart, intelligent, they help them and then leave them alone. Good. But boastful. If they're boastful, bragging about how much they buy, etc., admiration decreases. Okay? And if admiration decreases, then that's linked with facilitation and passive facilitation, which also decreases. Rude. Now, rude is the worst one. Boastful, they're okay. But rude, if you notice on the Singapore flag, rude leads to envy and contempt. So they're really angry there, right? If you are rude, that is absolutely the worst. And what is rude? I go back. Rude is being uncivilized, unreasonable, rude, and immoral. If you are uncivilized, they will feel disgust, hate, resentment, and contempt. And what else? It might even lead to harmful behaviors. Interesting. But this is the full model for Singapore. Now, in Malaysia, if you look at approachable and competent, it's similar. It's similar. Rude is also the worst for Malaysia. But then if you look at Thailand, competence, but there's one thing is also missing. Approachable. Approachable is missing here in Thailand. Now, this is where future research can say, oh, why isn't approachable lead to admiration the same as Singapore and Malaysia? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not Thai. I cannot speak on behalf of Thai. But we can guess. Maybe they don't differentiate between whether a Chinese tourist are very, very approachable or less approachable. Maybe they see them all as approachable because they're so heavily dependent on tourism. So approachable is not a big deal for them. They see tourists in a positive light. That could be potential. And the rest. Now, of course, all these models, all three countries, what really matters is the summary. What does this mean? What does this all mean? Tripartite model of stereotypes, emotions, and behaviors in tourism. We tried to connect them. Now, the interesting one is this. Boastful does not necessarily lead to harmful behaviors. Right? So, yes, you can be boastful. See, you can be boastful. Here, boastful in Singapore, boastful, but we don't see harm. If you are rude, you see active harm and passive harm. But if you're boastful, fine. If you want to buy your luxury handbag, if you want to show off what you have, people still won't harm you. They just leave you alone. They leave you alone. But rude, that's when it's harmful. So boastful, spending a lot of money, because Professor Koo, you said, we need tourism for money, right? At the very start of the presentation. So in your minds, maybe in South Korea, if you see a lot of tourists being very boastful, buying expensive goods, you're not going to get out of way to actively or passively harm them. So maybe you'll just, endure them, leave them as it is. But rude is the worst. It reduces positivity and induces negativity simultaneously. Now, of course, rude and uncivility is societal dependence. What is a good example? What is rude in Hong Kong and Japan are totally different. Maybe in Japan, if you talk on your phone in Japan, I don't know about South Korea, maybe you can share as well. If you talk on your phone on the subway and make a noise, it's very rude in Japan. But in Hong Kong, people talk on the phone in the subway. It's not the same thing. And then there's some people say in certain countries, if you speak very loud, you're uncivilized, you're rude. But there are some people who say in Chinese, I'm loud, but it doesn't mean I'm impolite. I can say, thank you very much, very loud. But I'm very polite, right? My words are very polite. Thank you very much. But so there's a difference between how we define as what is civil behavior, depending on the location.
People from China and Chinese group tours, people talk loudly in the subway or whatever. And people think that is rude, but it's actually a habit. And they are just routinely talked with among the people between people. But you know, in South Korea, probably in metro or subway, when the people speak loudly, the people think, wow, this Chinese, mainland Chinese tourist. So, which is kind of we have own perception and attitude toward that kind of you know, loud speaking. But actually, they do all the time speaking, you know, habitually. So that's a kind of a, you know, your findings, rude, reduce the positive and induce the negative simultaneous. That's I think
Definitely.
correct. Yeah.
And I mean, I had one colleague tell me, international colleague, he said, you know, when people, in his view, his observation is that when people speak Chinese or Cantonese, they're very dramatic, but they're also very friendly, but they're just naturally louder. So it's like speaking loud on the subway. Maybe to Koreans is rude, uncivilized, but to them it's habit. So rude is one of those social dependent ones. And that's where we have to educate both the tourists and the locals. The discussion for this one is we have residents from different nations, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, who view the same dominant tourist market quite differently. Of course, you know, here the research here is due on mainland Chinese tourists, right? Because it's the dominant market. But if we replicate this research, for example, Canada, US, and Mexico, they probably have different views. The same thing with Europe. So, you know, this is where stereotype research is also very context-driven. Thais display more positive attitudes toward mainland Chinese tourists, followed by Malaysians and Singaporeans. But probably this is what we provide a possible explanation. It's because of tourism dependencies on international tourism for their economies. Now, at the point of writing, when we published this, it was about 20% of GDP for Thailand, 16% to Malaysia, while only 4% to Singapore. So of course, if your economy is dependent on international tourism, you probably need to display more positive attitudes. You have different stages of economic development, different histories and cultures, and also different geographical area. Singapore, it's smaller, right? It's a city-state. So when there's a lot of tourists, there's a lot of tourists. I asked my PhD student, Sari, he said, oh, so what is Singapore trying to do? So Singapore is, at that time, did this act like a local and insider experience, Singlish. Now, what is Singlish? They say, okay, in Singapore, there's many different official languages. There's Chinese, English, and other languages as well. But to them, they have their own culture. So something like Singlish, maybe you should teach the tourists how to speak Singlish. Interesting. I don't know how, but it does sound a bit different. Learn and prepare for the destination. So tourists better appreciate the history of Singapore, understand inclusive diversity of Singaporeans, and assimilate with residents. Because there's a preconception. There's a preconception by a lot of tourists that Singapore is like China because there's a lot of Chinese residents. But no, they said no. Singapore society is very different. They're very proud of their diversity, their inclusivity. They're very proud of that. It's not the same. But some people still think they are the same. In turn, residents could be surprised by tourists' ability to speak with them, admire their willingness to learn, and become more willing to this. So maybe residents, if they feel that the tourist is trying, then they would be happier. So it's the same thing. When I go to France, for example, of course, I don't speak French. Or even in Quebec, in the French part of Canada, I don't speak French. But if I try even to say a little bit, the residents are much more willing to interact because you show that you care. So this is the second paper. Questions and comments, please. Would be very welcome.
So how about you investigate on the Singapore and Thailand and Malaysia? Haven't you tried that research on Western country and Eastern country. Like they have own stereotype toward China and Japan and Korea, and we have our own stereotype toward the Caucasian America and Europe. So it's quite a different, different diverse culture and different view. So
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
not why not study on the a little bit huge concept of a
Yeah.
stereotype?
Absolutely. I mean, I can imagine Europeans,
Mm,
North Americans, and
mm,
even Australians down south would view Chinese tourists very differently. But
mm.
the direct answer to you, Professor Koo, is we don't have budget for all of that.
So there's a good reason for
Right?
that.
Data
Right.
collection is, yeah.
Uh,
And the translation of all the different surveys,
uh,
the testing,
I see.
we don't have the capability to translate into French to German, etc. at this
Uh,
point. So,
okay.
but it would be quite interesting. Thank you.
I see. So actually, this kind of research, not just the attitude and behavior regarding visitors and residents, which is quite linked to the tourism development in residential area and sharing resource with mm, visitors and residents. For example, like what I addressed to the in advance, we have much numbers from all over the world in these days.
Mhm.
Uh, have you ever visited Korea, Seoul, before?
Yes, yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the good things Seoul is we have a, bad things, good things coexist in Seoul. One is too many people, so the traffic congestion all the time. And the second is good thing is we have a big mountain surrounding us. So we can access to the big mountain and the rock mountains by simple $2 subway. And so a lot of the international students enjoy that rock mountains surroundings. And these days, if I visiting, I'm regular, climber the mountains, and I'm happy to see the diverse country and students there. But sometimes too many people climb up the mountains, and on weekend, wow, it's kind of a the mountains belong to Korea, and we too much international students coming in, and then uncomfortably interfere my enjoy the rock climbing. So wow, it's kind of another is good linkage between that research
Yeah.
topic to behavior and residential resource. And
Hmm.
even in Korea, Hangang is quite a huge river, and we have a great uh, the cycling road beside Hangang. And once if the number of visitors are cycling with residents together, probably residents are not happy to sharing that, you know, uh, cycling road with visitors. So what do you think of that point?
Yeah, I think this is why a lot of the tourism policy makers
Mm,
are trying to divert the the tourist arrivals to other
mm,
parts of the country or other
mm,
less seen areas of the destination.
mm,
So don't put everybody in Seoul.
mm,
Maybe try to market Korea and spread them out.
mm,
I think they're trying to do that in Japan.
mm,
I know in Hong Kong they tried that as well,
mm,
but of course most people will have to go to the peak, Victoria Harbor, see the skyline.
mm,
But they're saying, okay, maybe you should go see the rural villages.
mm,
But for a lot of tourists,
mm,
it's hard to access.
mm,
Accessibility is an issue.
mm,
But what we do see a lot now is the impact of influencers. If influencers discover something that is different and not the traditional hiking or areas, they bring a lot of the tourists over there.
mm.
So influencers could potentially divert some of
mm,
these flows. And then
mm,
if there's fewer tourists on your hiking trail, on your
mm,
climbing, maybe you'll be happier, right,
mm,
Professor Koo?
mm,
Or the biking trail.
mm,
Mhm. So I, this is what I personally believe. I think residents are residents welcome tourists. I think
mm,
residents are happy with tourists because they're proud.
mm,
Residents like to share their
mm.
culture. They're very proud of themselves. They
That's a
just
point of view about the like I I'm superior, so I feel okay. I'm welcoming the visitors, and I enjoy those diverse culture and the culture and the people from outside. And if I feel confidently about myself, there is kind of superior mind, then I welcome. If I think I'm inferior or I feel kind of negatively think about myself,
Mhm.
probably think oh, and hate or like or not welcoming and
Mhm.
sort of things. So in these days, right wing the political movement in Seoul, they show the kind of a hateful, comment and behavior toward the tourists,
Mhm.
and that I think is they're not so confident their life and less uh, forgivable and some sort of imperial. Then
Mhm.
they are showing their hostile to the
Uh-huh.
visitors because they are
Oh,
imperial. Mm,
yeah, and then this becomes the and then but then this the interesting is
mm,
as residents, we may be hostile or we
mm,
may be unhappy with tourists.
mm,
But yet we are always tourists too. We
yes.
go to US, we go to Japan, we go to Thailand.
Uh,
So if we change our identity and think
uh,
along those lines,
uh,
but as the tourists, we do not want residents to hate us either.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
But
And
we are it depends on like if I like what I said I'm so confident and
uh,
we are proud of myself and my country and kind of these days the
yeah,
Netflix contents so go viral to spread. So then we can giving more open mind
yeah.
and positively attitude toward visitors.
Mm,
That's
mhm,
the kind of a stereotype changing uh, is from my you know characters and personality. So
mhm.
it's quite related
Right.
to economic development and country the rank and status.
I
So
agree.
so people like I'm living well and I such a uh, the upper class sort of things, people try to open up and uh, more adequately and try to help other
Mm,
people. So there's quite a important issue is related to this your topics and to uh, the the kind of a culture and personal levels, economic situations.
I'm curious, Professor Ku, what do young people think in Korea?
The young people allegedly young people they are is something very curious and something they turn on to the right wing. Uh, oh, there is some reason for that, and 30, 40, and 50 are more left wing side, and these young people goes to the right wing and not so welcoming.
Mhm.
Uh, so I don't know why, and the people even the economic situation and the income levels goes up, and they are so afraid and scary for their future and job
Oh,
opportunity. and and especially in Seoul and South Korea, we are always think about competition and competitiveness, and feel pressure and frustrated from that competition. And then they think always okay, win the game or beat my component. So I think they are not too much forgivable and open up to the visitors and others.
I see.
Okay.
So the young people are in quite a stressful environment then, highly competitive.
Yes, yes.
Oh, wow. Quite a different
That's
generation.
my implication.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So the too much competition and competitive environment make people unforgivable and less open.
Yeah,
So
I see.
it's closely related to the visitors environment as well.
Yeah, this is a big topic about,
Yes,
it's like
yes.
politics, economics, tourists,
Uh-huh,
space.
uh-huh.
Definitely. Thank you.
Already, like in Europe, a lot of the percentage of right-wing side is become larger and larger, and in France and in Germany and in the UK even, they are some percentage of people hate the immigration, and the immigration means is kind of related to visitors and tourists as well. So it's not just a problem of Seoul or Hong Kong. It's widespread all over the world, especially because of Donald Trump. He addressing a lot the hatred comment on the visitors and immigrants.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
There's a big issue in these days.
Oh, more research, right? More
Yes, yes,
research
it's
into.
quite interesting research topics.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is the last paper I want to share.
Oh,
Explicit and implicit stereotypes. So this was published in Journal of Sustainable Tourism. Now, this one, it takes a different angle to it. The first two papers that I shared with you are based on what? Self-reports. I give you a survey and I ask you, oh, for example, from 1 strongly disagree to 7 strongly agree. Do you believe Chinese tourists are rude? You can say 1, strongly disagree. Do you think they are competent? 7, agree. So I give you can, you fill a survey from 1 to 7. This is a very explicit approach. But stereotypes are interesting. It's very implicit. What we really think and what we say could be 2 different things. So this one, we wanted to address implicit stereotypes and to examine the difference, if any, between implicit and explicit. So we have to put this here. Explicit stereotypes is cautious. You fill out the survey, you are probably thinking, well, there's social desirability. Maybe I should put 4, 4, 4, 4, because very few people put 1 or 7. Maybe it's just the middle. Maybe I shouldn't say what I really think. Maybe you think Chinese tourists are intelligent, 7. But on the survey, you put 5 because you don't want to be too nice. So there's this issue with self-reports, but unconscious implicit stereotypes are what? They're unconscious beliefs, uncontrolled intentions, and it's really lower influenced by external. It's in your brain, it's automatic. It's automatic. Now, of course, we recognize we are not the first one to do implicit stereotypes. For those of you who are interested, you can check out the Harvard IAT. So, for example, the first one is age stereotypes. Okay, so this is computerized test. And how does it work? They give you some words, and then how fast you associate that word or that image is what you really believe. So, for example, look at the gender career IAT. It reveals a relative link between family and females and between careers and males. There's gender and science, liberal arts and females, or science and males. So the faster you do the link, then the stronger your stereotypes are. There's also race, right? Black and white, AIT, Asian American, or European American IATs. So this computerized test. We use this idea and we try to put it into a tourism context. And in fact, I'll show you a demo later. Okay. So what is it? It's a computerized indirect measure. It's the strength of automation, pairing between target and attributes, and it measures your reaction time. So let's go through this exercise. What is this computerized IAT? And of course, there's different forms of single test, but this is the full test. We asked some of our former students to take some photos. Okay, so they have the Chinese tourists on the left, and then you have non-Chinese tourists on the right. So on the right hand side, the male here was my PhD student from Cyprus.
Okay.
Right here. So it's very obvious he's not Chinese, right? So there's two sides, okay? And they try to do similar photos. And then what? We have words. The ones that I showed you. Positive, sincere, good. And then the negative, materialistic, loud, rude, immoral, and uncivilized. Then what happens? We pair them. Target and your automatic reactions. If I show you, for example, a photo of a Chinese tourist, how fast are you to connect that with friendly? If I show you a picture of a non-Chinese tourist, how fast are you to connect it with uncivilized? And the speed that you react is what you truly think. This is the computerized IAT, implicit association test. Of course, there's different blocks on it, right? So there's a practice block, you have mainland Chinese, and they give you all the different combinations. So you associate word with the image. And it's all the combination. And at the very end, it calculates a score. And that score is how strong your implicit stereotypes are. Give you some examples. This is a photo on the top left. It's either mainland Chinese tourist or negative, or non-mainland Chinese or positive. So if you look at the photo on the top left, then your correct answer is non-mainland Chinese. Okay? So maybe that's very fast for you. And then you look at the word on the right. Friendly. Is this a positive word? And if it's a positive word and it's non-mainland Chinese, then it's to the right-hand side here. And then you have a score, etc., etc. And the bottom one is another word, intelligent. So it's a timed reaction. What it is a timed reaction. This is just the basic math. It calculates it for you. That's okay. Block 6 minus block 3, sure. But what is the result? They give you a value. After the calculation, you could be neither. So you don't really have a strong stereotypes, or you have a strong negative or a strong positive from -2 to 2. We did this test for Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. Okay, so about a sample size of almost 1,000. Okay, we asked them to do this test. And this is the result. We put this in color code. So implicitly, if you see Hong Kong in red, that is a lot of strong negative implicit stereotypes. This matches with what they say in their self-reports. Very little green. There's some neutral, some gray, but very little green. Malaysia, there's more green and some gray. Singapore is probably closer to Hong Kong. More reds than greens. And then Thailand, Thailand is probably the most positive. Most positive. So this is the implicit association test. We plot that, and this becomes much more clear. See, in Hong Kong, it's grouped together. You can see it's a very strong. And then here in Malaysia, it's more scattered. In Thailand, it's more scattered. Let me show you a demo of how it would look like. Give me 1 second as I bring this over. Do you see this, mainland Chinese or non-mainland Chinese? Okay, so you put your left hand on the E and your right hand on the I, and you try to be as fast as you can. So for example, it shows, see, this is a photo of a mainland Chinese or non-mainland Chinese. You say non-mainland Chinese. If you do it wrong, it corrects you because this is practice, and then you have to do it right again. See, as I do this, I am getting faster. See, let's say I get it wrong, that's okay. You can have some errors, but the idea is you have to be as fast as you can. Okay, so and then this is the first block. The first block should be ending soon. See, I'm getting faster and faster. Now, the second block. Okay, the second block is negative or positive words. This is intelligent, it's a positive word. Unreasonable, if I put positive, then it's wrong at the negative. And then I try to go as fast as I can. Okay. Now, after I do as fast as I can, it should go to the next block quite soon. Okay, now this is hard. This is mainland Chinese or negative, and non-mainland Chinese or positive. So the idea here is if you have a strong stereotype of mainland Chinese and negative, you'll be very fast in this block because it's or. But if I say mainland Chinese or positive, you might need to think a little bit if you already have a negative view of them. So this is the test. And you can do this test with gender, with race in the Harvard IAT as well. But this one's for tourism. So this one here, mainland Chinese or negative? The mainland Chinese, good is positive. And then you do that. Whoops. So you do this as well. See, you can tell it's taking a little bit longer. And then I want to show you the next block after.
Interesting.
And then you go, now look at now you do it again. So really, this is the IAT. Now this IAT typically, in the classroom setting, I would ask one of my students to come up and test it. And then they would experience how difficult it is to do. Now, of course, you say, oh, but IAT, things can change. Yes, exactly. In my first presentation, I shared with you that stereotypes can change. So maybe materialistic, it's not as important anymore. They're not as boastful. They don't buy as much. Maybe there are other stereotypes. So if you go to South Korea and you do this research, ask people what stereotypes they have of Chinese, maybe they'll come up with something new. But this is really the demo. And the images that we showed here, if I go back here, these images, at that point in time, these were the most common images you will see around Chinese tourists in Hong Kong, right? Looking for directions. Selfie stick, it was popular in the back, and not so popular now. Selfie sticks, a lot of luggage, but these days there's a lot fewer. We do not see so many tourists pushing luggages around because they don't buy as much. A lot of them are solo or independent. They go hiking, they go biking, they go sightseeing. They don't buy nearly as much. So lots fewer luggages. Taxis, right? Now there are different ride-hailing apps. Everybody uses their smartphones to find a ride. So on the bottom right, looking for a taxi with an umbrella is not as common. So even images depend on time and depend on context. Maybe in South Korea, you don't see many tourists like this. But maybe they do other things. You see a lot other visuals. So after that, what did we meet? we find statistically non-significant relationship between explicit and implicit stereotypes across 4 dimensions. What does this mean? There's a disassociation between implicit and explicit. What people say and what people really think are sometimes not the same. So similar to existing intergroup relation literature, on sensitive topics is where influenced by one's conscious intention to evaluate. I'll give you some examples. So in Singapore, there are negative impressions of mainland Chinese tourists through social media and forums. Therefore, it's socially desirable from Cerise perspective to say, Chinese tourists are bad, they're rude, etc., because you are repeating what social media says. That is socially desirable, explicitly. But implicitly, residents in Singapore were actually more positive. So automatically, if they have to be very fast, they were less likely to be influenced by tendencies to conform, the values, or the eyes of the public. So deep inside, honestly, they didn't feel Chinese tourists were so bad. But if you have to ask them to rate, they think of their blog, their influencers, then they say, okay, they are bad. So what they say versus what they think, there's a little disconnect. What does this mean for practical implications? Maybe they need to adopt a similar approach to Project IIT to measure implicit stereotypes. If you always focus on a survey from 1 to 7, you are only capturing what people have already shared with you, not what really think. And these studies are one-time cross-sectional evaluations. You'll notice that a limitation of all 3 studies is that I don't know what is happening in 2025. 2026 is already coming, right? I don't know how stereotypes have changed. I suspect Hong Kong is a lot more positive now. And I think Hong Kong residents are a lot more welcoming and have much more positive stereotypes of Chinese mainland tourists. But we don't know how that changed because this is a one-time. But I'm proud to say, though, that it sets the foundation for longitudinal research. So if future early career researchers or other PhD students want to do this, then they can track it longitudinally. So the presentation summary. At the start, I told you, I want to share with you a research program, not a research study, because there's 3 studies. There's really 3 papers, but it's a program that spans multiple years. From a tourist stereotype model, if I did not develop the model, we would not have the paper in tourism management of the tripartite model, and we would not have Journal of Sustainable Tourism implicit stereotypes. So one forms the other. In-group versus out-group. I want students and scholars to think about, what position they are when they do this type of research. We are all in groups as residents, but the moment we step across the border, we become the out-group. So there's almost self-reflection. Intergroup relations plus tourism management, also guest relations, future research. So these are all on stereotypes. Now, future research that I'm doing now is on tourist discrimination. And what is the difference between stereotypes and discrimination? Stereotypes is how we think. Discrimination is how we act. Of course, there's also positive discrimination and negative discrimination. And it depends, and this was an interesting one. And we can talk about this. I don't know how the students will feel as well. I asked the students this. Do you think this is discrimination? I have read that in some destinations, restaurants, they have 2 menus, 2 prices. A price for local residents and a price for local residents. It's the same thing in a restaurant. Should you charge tourists a higher price than residents? Is that discrimination? Charging a tourist a higher price than a local resident, is that discrimination?
I think so.
I think so. Now, that's negative discrimination. But then the restaurants, they're smart to say, no, it's all the same price. I am giving a discount to local residents.
It's not.
So I'm giving a discount to local residents, so I'm not charging the tourists a high price. That's positive discrimination. Is discount okay? See, now it's technically the outcome is the same. The outcome there's two levels of pricing, tourist versus resident. But instead of saying charging more, I just give a discount. Is that okay?
But it depends on how they perceive that impact. Like people, there's overcharging to me because I'm a tourist, and they say, okay, this discount price for residential, but they don't believe that like the way.
Oh, but
So
we see that all the time in society. If you have a student ID, you have a discount at restaurants. If you have a student ID, you have discount at technology companies if you buy phones or laptops. Right? So that becomes an in-group versus out-group. So a student becomes an in-group. If you're not a student, you're out-group. You pay regular price. So similarly, maybe if you have a Korean driver license, if you have a driver license, then you're an in-group. Then you get a discount. So really, and Professor Koo, you're right. Based on these negative or positive discriminatory behaviors, it can further affect how tourist attitudes or residents' attitudes towards each other. So yes, even discrimination is an interesting topic depending on how you phrase it. So one side is how we think about tourists. The other side is what do we actually do? And that's future research, the tourist discrimination. So with that, I finished presenting all three of my papers, Professor Koo.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Students, any questions? Oh, we have a lot of students here, but they don't turn on your video. Hey, this is class. If you don't turn on your video, I'm going to give a discount credit for you. It's seriously. Because he is presenting his presentation and you are sleep or doing nothing or okay. This is not a volunteer participation. It's compulsory participation for your credit in the classroom. Okay, turn on your video. There's etiquette and okay. Any question? Hongmangun, you're from Maryland, China. What do you think about this sensitive issue for you?
Yeah, for me, of course, it's our cultural difference. In China, we can speak loudly, we can hear clear, but in Korean, maybe people don't like that. Maybe in Hong Kong it's also. Maybe, yeah, but in Thailand, Singapore, people is other culture, so we are different.
Absolutely. I think exactly. And it's these cultural differences. There's no right or wrong. It's just cultural difference. But it's these cultural differences that make people think, oh, you are rude in my culture, but you're not rude in your culture. But as a tourist, technically you are going to someone's home to visit them.
So I think this is the conflict.
Yes. And then that's where we have to educate or do some internal or external education for both residents and tourists. Because otherwise, the gap becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Thank you for sharing.
There's quite, politics driving this kind of discrimination and stereotype and media together. And as you know, the accidentally one guy assassination in the United States, he mentioned a lot about the hatred comment. And the more strong right-wing guys kill him because of his so knife. That's the reason. So like a tourist is always visiting other country, other culture is hard issue for tourists. If residents or the politics are not favorable to visitors because of their politics situation or because of their interest group of politics, there's kind of afraid and scary moment for tourists. This is a hard issue. Okay, Songping, where are you from?
I'm also from China.
Okay, what do you think about this?
I think my man is also like a Kongmanji. Yeah.
But right now in Hong Kong, I think a lot of residents are much more positive about mainland Chinese tourists, really, because a lot of the Chinese tourists, they want to try the local food now. They want to go hiking. They want to go not just shopping. They appreciate the cultural differences of the city.
Okay.
And when they start learning about the city or the destination, I think residents are naturally saying, okay, you genuinely care.
Okay.
I think that's very positive.
Okay, I see. 루빈 양, 루빈 량, 루빈 양, 로, 관, 찬. 오케이, 김보람. 데끼. 오케이. 아수아. 오케이. 무하마드.
I am professor.
Okay.
Hello.
Where are you from?
I'm from Uzbekistan.
Okay. So what do you think of this issue? Is quite related to you as well?
Yeah.
Mm.
I will watch and analyze this lecture on YouTube. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Okay. Tran? Tran? Okay. 문재준?
Camera?
Okay. Good. Turn on your camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, hello.
Okay, well, as time still left, but okay, Vincent. So
Yes.
This is your main territory for research.
Yes, yep. There's one area.
Oh,
for
one
sure.
area. Okay. So now is this kind of a discrimination and stereotype is quite important for decreasing the kind of a discrimination or education,
Yeah.
the residents people, how they act and react toward visitors. Okay. So residents always we change situation change we become tourist suddenly, and again the residents. So and all the always like I study on the smart tourism cities, which is ICT enabled city life for residents, but I bring this issue to smart tourism. So smart tourism is providing a place for tourists doing their travel planning, searching, and review their text, review. This is all about smart tourism by tourists. However, smart tourism should be done in smart city, and the smart city is built for citizen. That means that smart city should provide residents a resource sharing for tourists as well. And then they're sharing resource with residents and the tourists together. That is a smart tourism cities. So one for quality of life ultimately, but one for visiting efficiency, effectiveness, and comfortableness in another city. So definitely, like in Seoul, we have a bicycle in Seoul, and that is built for citizens.
No.
But a lot of the tourists come to Korea, they enjoy that sharing bike as well. So even though our tons of monies and the tax invested for implement that kind of bicycle sharing bicycle, but they're also for tourists as well. In this case, so we should provide a platform for sharing tourists as well as citizens, and in a dual mode for achieving their comfortableness and smartness. So that's also another the topics with this stereotype and implicit and in-group. It's much more the psychological aspect, but if psychological aspect support tourism development or infrastructure in the residence city, there's much supportive ground and supportive atmosphere by taxpayer.
And it would be interesting to see how investment in smart destinations or smart development can reduce some of the negative stereotypes and discrimination, because well-being has been improved. So it goes back into a circle.
Yes.
Very good, very good.
Okay, well, Vincent, we still time, but let's wrap up our presentation here, and sooner or later we look each other and for sure. In the conference.
Thank you very much, Professor Koo. Thank you very much to the students for your interest in my research, and all the best to your studies.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.